Well, good evening, everyone. For those that I haven't met before, my name is Eric Nordberg. I'm the Dean of the library here, Paul Meek Library at UT Martin. I want to say welcome to the folks that have joined us here in person. And I know that we've got some people connecting in on the live stream. Be aware that the link that we published with the promotion for this event will also be the link that keeps a recording of what has happened here this evening. So feel free to push that on to others. I'm sure we're going to have an interesting evening. A little bit of housekeeping for those that may not have been here before. Restrooms are down that way to the left, and emergency exits just around the corner. Let's hope nobody needs to use those this evening. I want to welcome you here to the Paul Meek Library, which is named in honor of Paul Meek, who was a very important person, held a leadership position here at the campus. Before we had chancellors, he was still the head person here as that title evolved. But he was the one that directed the University of Tennessee at Martin through many changes. And he was here from 1934 to 1967. So a big, long time of growth, of challenge, and many feel very strongly that he single-handedly saved the university, particularly during World War II, when a lot of our male students went to serve overseas, and he was able to attract a flight training program here that kind of saved the college during that time. His daughter, Ann Meek, Dr. Ann Meek, actually created an endowed fund in his name with the intention that it would fund a speaker series. And her interest in literature was very much that she wanted to be sure that students that attended the University of Tennessee at Martin, regardless of whether they were in a literature program or not, would be exposed to various types of literary arts during their time here. And so the Paul Meek Literary Legacy Speaker Series is what is the result of that activity. Lisa Roney, who is Paul Meek's granddaughter, has continued the family's legacy and is directly involved in our selection committee. Lisa's, I think, joining us remotely tonight from Florida, and sent her apologies for not being able to be here today. But we're appreciative of the Meek family and their support through the years, as reflected in the fact that the building is named in honor of Paul Meek. Through these gifts, the library also continues to purchase literature that we add to our collection, both in print form and in digital form. We're always looking for suggestions on things that we should add to the collection. I see Heidi Bush is here in the audience and is always happy to work with people. She's also our library liaison to the Department of English and Modern Foreign Languages, and we have several faculty from that department here tonight as well. So if there are things that you think our students should be exposed to, please make recommendations to us so we can build out that collection. This speaker series is an annual event. You'll find a flyer at your seat there, the back of which has a list of our previous speakers. Several of the members of our selection committee are here tonight. I can see that David Carruthers from English and Modern Foreign Language, Mari Carter as well from that department, former Dean Lynn Alexander, and our current Dean of the College of Humanities and Fine Arts, Jeffrey Bibby, are here. If you have ideas of speakers that we should bring, please let them know or let me know as we move forward. I want to point out also that we do have copies of our speaker's book for sale, books here for sale, and he's agreed to sign any of those that you might have this evening. I want to thank our friends from the bookstore for coming over and setting that up tonight, so we're appreciative of that. But enough about this for me. Let's talk a little bit about our speaker this evening, James Cherry. He lists himself in his promotional materials. He has a very good website that talks about the work that he's been doing as a poet, a fiction writer, a professor, but also a literary activist. And so I thought it was quite interesting as our committee was looking at options this year to find a poet who actually feels that they're activist in the writing that they do. And so we're going to hear a bit about that tonight. He's the author of 4 books of poetry, 2 novels, and a collection of short fiction. His latest novel has been republished by Stephen Austin University Press. And he's also been nominated for several awards, an NAACP Image Award, the Lillian Smith Book Award, and Next Generation Indie Book Award program as well. He's been a fellow at a number of different pieces. You'll see him listed in the handout that's there. He has an MFA that he earned from the University of Texas at El Paso. He lives just down the road from us in Jackson, Tennessee. And I think some of our previous speakers have come from far away. Some of you may remember last year we actually had Simon Van Boy, who came over from England to be our speaker. He's actually in New York, but he was born in the UK. And I think it's great that we have a local author this time around, and our committee was very pleased to have that happen. He's also down there as the founder of a jazz foundation in the Jackson area, and he and his wife Tammy, who are here, also operate a variety of support services for veterans in the Jackson community. And so we're appreciative for the work that they do. It was interesting as we were setting this up. I always ask speakers what they want to do. The podium's theirs once I give it up. And James was very clear that he thought that he would give a talk on the role and responsibilities of the writer in modern America, which I thought was a very compelling topic right now in the society that we live in. Well, a few weeks went by, and he reached out to me again. He said, you know, maybe it'd be better if I just did some readings from my poetry. He said, I'm not sure that I can necessarily stop myself from giving comments on what the modern writer does in modern America. And I wrote back to him, and I was very clear that not only is our university very open about engaging students in conversation, but that I was very personally interested to know how writers deal with this. I joked with him when I was writing with him that I'm still a Bruce Springsteen fan. I'm sorry about that, but there's one of my favorite phrases that he has is, the poets around here write nothing at all. They just stand back and let it all be. I have a feeling that if you've read any of James Cherry's work, you would find that that's not the case with what he writes. So with that, I'm going to have him come up and tell us a little bit about the role and responsibilities of the writer in modern America. Please help me welcome James Cherry.
All right, we good? Okay, all right. Good evening. Thanks to Dr. Nordberg and Dr. Carter for extending the invitation. It's an honor to be a speaker as part of the Paul Meek series. And thank you guys for coming out. I will not be very long, but the role and responsibilities of the writer in modern day America is probably something that you've heard before. Of course, telling the truth. That's always been one role and responsibility of a writer. But in today's time, with all the echo chambers and social media and all these other things that we have, the writer, in addition to speaking truth, he also needs to be an interpreter of truth. Okay? So, for example, we've been told that the Confederacy's reason for engaging in the Civil War was states' rights. Okay? So, what does that mean? All right. So, an interpretation or investigation of that simply means that the Confederacy wanted the right to continue slavery and to continue to perpetuate it. Okay. How do we know this? Well, it's not hard to understand. This is from the Vice President of the Confederacy, Alexander H. Stephens. This is part of a speech he gave in Savannah, Georgia in 1861, known as the Cornerstone Speech. Our new government is founded upon exactly the opposite idea. Now, he was referring to the Constitution and the idea of equality and all of that. He says, its foundations, speaking of the Confederacy, its foundations are laid, its cornerstone rests upon the great truth that the Negro is not equal to the white man, that slavery, subordination to the superior race is his natural and normal condition. This, our new government, is the first in the history of the world based upon this great physical, philosophical, and moral truth. Now, that's from the Vice President of the Confederacy. If you don't want to take his word for it, this is what Jefferson Davis, who was the president of the Confederacy, this is what he believed. African slavery, as it exists in the United States, is a moral, social, and a political blessing. So when you hear the whole idea, just as an example, states' rights, then it's the poets and the writers' responsibility to go beyond just the surface of things, right? And so to the South's credit, or to the Confederacy's credit, they may have lost the war physically, but philosophically and culturally, the South won. I mean, those same guys that lost their war, they were able to walk back home, hitch up their mules, and just continue everyday life. And so those same mores and cultural icons that we're dealing with today, remember, the monuments and the statues, they came years after the Civil War. So the South was able to create their own truth and their own narrative. You know, the whole idea of a lost cause, right? Okay. So poets and writers, we are responsible for cutting through all that BS and getting to the truth. Okay. So truth will always be tantamount for a poet and a writer. The other thing that poets and writers in modern day America should be dedicated to is beauty. Okay. So the way we learn how to write is through the beauty of language. Imagery and metaphor and similes and all these great things. And we will always write about love, you know, falling in love, falling out of love, death, nature, you know, sunsets, moonrise. You know, poets will always write about those things. But there needs to be a balance, okay? If all we do is just write art for art's sake, then we're not being true to the other side of that equation, which is truth. And the same thing goes if all you're writing about is truth and not dealing with the beauty, then you can become just a propagandist, right? And no poet, no writer, no intellectual should be a mouthpiece for the Democrats or for the Baptists or for any political organization, right? Artists strictly should be devoted to truth and beauty, okay? And so there's always a balance that we wrestle with those two things, okay? The third thing, as far as roles and responsibility go in modern America, as a poet and a writer and an artist in general, we are witnesses. We're not innocent bystanders. Okay, when you put a witness on a court in a courtroom, he's committed, or he takes an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Okay, so as a witness, somebody has to tell a story. Okay, we survived the pandemic, right? I would like to think people were writing about that. People were creating art related to those times. The Me Too movement, that was a very significant movement for our country. That should have been documented. Black Lives Matter. In other words, we're not to just sit on the sidelines and write these wonderful lines and great novels and all these things. We are part of society. We are part of the culture. And we've been gifted with this ability to have words and to use language. And so we are witnesses. We're not just bystanders. Okay. The fourth thing is empathy. You cannot be a poet, an artist, or a writer without having empathy. Matter of fact, you can't even be a human being, a full human being, without having empathy. Okay? So empathy simply means that we share more in common with each other than the things that separate us. So we all laugh, we all cry, we all know what disappointment is, we all know what joy is. We all want the best for our kids and our families. We all want safe neighborhoods. So these are the things that bind us together. So when I think of empathy, I think it is the cornerstone of literature that leads to the exploration of the human condition. In other words, literature gives us insight into what it means to be a human being. If you're an artist, a writer, a poet, and you don't have empathy, you can't get to that level of understanding. Okay? So, one of the things that bothered me when this ICE thing first started and they were going after the criminals, they say, the first thing that came to my mind was, where does all this end? Where's all this going? Because later we found out that everybody that was being rounded up, some of them didn't even have criminal records. So today, it could be one segment of the population. Tomorrow, it could be trans people. It could be black people. It could be anybody. I mean, we're all Americans here, right? So empathy is the ability to put yourself in somebody else's position and how would you feel if it was happening to you? So that's something that all poets and writers and artists share. The other thing, it takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage in modern day America to be a poet or a writer or an artist. You can lose your livelihood over something you write or something you post. You can be arrested. According to PEN is a organization dedicated to writers' freedom, and this is what they said. Actually, in 2024, the number of writers jumped from 238 to 375. But this is a statement PEN put out. Authoritarian regimes are innately adept at the creation of narratives. Indeed, the structure of authoritarianism, is dependent upon the codification of a national myth, upon the expunging of inconvenient truths on the timeline, the rewriting and repression of history, and the attempted silencing of all of those who aim to defy this erasure. Writers pose one of the greatest threats to the perpetuated silencing. By virtue of a writer's place as a record keeper within their community and their nation, the very acts of writing, documentation, and storytelling become acts of inherent dissidence. So, and here are the top countries that lead the world as far as incarcerating writers in 2024. China, 118, Iran, 43, Saudi Arabia, 23, Vietnam, 23, Israel, 21, and Russia, 18. Okay, some of the top genres of writers who have found themselves incarcerated were online commentators. 203 are behind bars. Journalists, 127. Literary writers, 115. Activists, 92. And scholars, 68. Poets, there's 67 behind bars. And creative writers, creative artists are 37. So just recently, Nigerian poet Wole Soyinka, his visa was revoked for some comments that he made about 47, President number 47. I'm not even going to say his name. I just say 47. So now he has to now this guy's a Nobel Prize winner, okay? And of course, you remember Salman Rushdie. He wrote the book, The Satanic Verses, 1988. The Iranian government put out a fatwa, which is basically a hit. And just 3 years ago, he was attacked while giving a reading, and he almost lost his life. So to be a writer, not only in modern day America, but in the world that we live in today, it can be a very dangerous thing. But consider the alternative. All right. If we remain silent, that silence can become a tool of oppression. Amen. One of the reasons why Adolf Hitler was successful in his effort to destroy the Jewish people, a lot of Germans were silent. So the great writer Audre Lorde, she's famous for her quote, "Your silence will not save you." Okay. So as a poet, as a writer, we have an obligation to speak up. Okay, so another role and responsibilities that writers have is this whole idea of reimagining what freedom looks like. Okay, so if things are oppressive, if things are authoritative, which couldn't say a few minutes ago, writers and poets and artists in general, we can create a scenario that points to something better. I think about when South Africa was under apartheid. There was a fiction writer, Nadine Gordimer. You know, her work, even though apartheid was a brutal system, she was creating a whole new world. And so that's what we do. I mean, you think about a poet or a fiction writer, we sit down there with a blank screen, or we have a blank sheet of paper. And by the time it's over with, we have developed characters, there's dialogue, there's scenes and settings. So we have the ability to reimagine what freedom looks like and what human dignity, what it is. Okay. All right, I got a few more. So one thing, one responsibility we have as well is to encourage other artists. And so remember this, when a government does become a dictatorship, when it does become fascist, the first people that happen to disappear are the artists, are the poets, are the writers, are the intellectuals. Why? Because we are the guardians, we are the promoters of truth and beauty. Truth and beauty exposes all the hypocrisy and all the lies that surrounds us. So, and a lot of times, I didn't mention this, but we've had artists who've actually lost their lives because of what they wrote or what they created. I think of Pablo Neruda, right? It was suspected that he was poisoned in '73, and you know, a few years back, I think they happened to do an autopsy, and they were correct. You know, Pablo Neruda was a Chilean poet, and he was very outspoken about oppression, not only in Chile, but around the world. So as a poet and as an artist today, we need to encourage one another. So one of the things that I do, a few weeks in Jackson, there's an organization, Indivisible Jackson. They had an open mic, freedom of speech isn't dead. So I went, and by my presence, I hope I made a difference, because the people that were there, they encouraged me. Okay, and it's not just other literary artists. I have friends who are, Dr. Norberg mentioned about the Jazz Foundation. A lot of my friends are musicians. When they have concerts and performances, I make an effort to attend that. Visual artists are very important. So artists have to encourage one another. All right. The other thing that we do is we write for posterity's sake. We write for posterity's sake. In other words, we write, we create, we paint, we draw like our life's dependent on it. Okay? What this does is that 20, 40, 50, 80 years from now, Maybe somebody will read one of our books, come across something in an anthology where our work appears, and maybe they will be inspired to continue the legacy. And so, poets and writers should deal with subjects about race, deal with subjects about gender, deal with subjects about equality. These are the things that will last. This is the kind of writing that will be around. So in literature, you have what's considered literary, and then you have considered maybe the commercial. Okay, so we aim for those things that will be around for generations to come. Okay, so there's this thing about activism. I consider myself a literary activist, meaning that in 2001, I started a poetry workshop in Jackson called the Griot Collective of West Tennessee. So that was a space where black poets in general, we would meet once a month, we would critique each other's work, we would talk about publication, we would go to schools, we would sponsor poetry contests for kids, we would bring in poets of national renown to the city of Jackson. And we would partner with colleges and universities in the area. And so that's one of the things that I do. But the thing about activism, as a creative, you have to be careful. You can't be on 4 or 5 boards. You can't be a member of every other organization and get your work done. Okay? And another thing, I'm not going to be in the street leading a demonstration. That's just, well, that will consume too much of my time and energy. But my art, I hope, is activism by itself. The books that you read of mine, I'll read a few poems tonight. I hope somewhere in there that my work will be activism by itself. So poets have to balance that as well. I'll share this with you. Recently, they had the No Kings marches, not only in Jackson but around the country. And somebody has remarked that there's not a lot of black people at these demonstrations now. And I'll interpret that for you. One reason is that, and I'm not a spokesperson for all black people, so don't get that wrong. But this is how I see it. How much more marching and sitting down and standing up and rallying are we asked to do as a race and a culture? Okay. So right now, from where I stand, a lot of black people are waiting to see what the majority white people are going to do. Okay? Because to be honest, to be truthful, racism and white supremacy, that's a white problem. Black people, we are basically a reactionary people. When something happens, we get in an uproar. We don't know how to solve white supremacy or institutional racism. So if it was created by white people are going to have to stop it. You're going to have to solve it. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about the run-of-the-mill everyday racism. I'm talking about the racism that affects every institution of our country. That's what I'm speaking of. Okay? So that's one of the things that I see as far as these No King movements go. I think they're great movements, and but right now, I just happened to see a discussion somewhere where somebody was wondering why there was not so many black people out there. All right, a couple more points. Hope, as bad as things are, as bad as things may appear, we had a little hope a couple of days ago with some election results. But as a poet and as an artist, we're always hopeful. What other option do we have? And the reason why we're hopeful is because it's something about human beings that it's the indomitable human condition. In other words, the more you try to oppress and suppress somebody, the more they resist. Okay? So, this is what's part of the beauty of writing and literature. It's this indomitable human spirit that we have. You know, people always are going to find a way to fight back. People are going to always find a way to make things better. This is what I believe. Okay, so you know, administrations, they come and go, hopefully. But as an artist, one of the things that I try to do in my work is to show that nobody is all bad, nobody is all good. Okay, we're all flawed individuals. Okay, we're all capable of doing some evil things. We're all capable of doing great good. And so there's hope that the human condition will prevail. Okay. The final thing I want to note is, as far as roles and responsibility go, is poets and writers are visionaries. We have the ability to see what's coming. Margaret Atwood, Handmaid's Tale, y'all know that book, right? She wrote that book. So the book is about there's a coup in America and things revert back to 17th century kind of stuff, and you know, women's rights are pretty much non-existent. She wrote that book in 1984. Ronald Reagan was the president. Okay. By the way, this "Make America Great Again." 47 didn't come up with that. That's Ronald Reagan's language. Okay. But she saw what was coming, and you know, if you're a woman today, 2025, it's hard to believe, but your body belongs to the state. I mean, if you're having issues with a pregnancy, where do you go for help now? Okay, so George Orwell, he wrote 1984 and 1949. Now, how visionary was that? I mean, some of the language that he created, double speak, you know, that sounds like alternative facts, right? Big Brother, you know, these words are now part of the American lexicon. I think about Richard Wright, who in 1940 wrote Native Son. He was trying to tell people, look, these urban centers, with all this disillusionment and dehumanization, they're going to explode. And, you know, in the 1960s, they exploded. So those are the points I wanted to make about the role and responsibilities of poets and writers in modern day America. All right, I'm going to read a few poems. Is that okay? All right. This is from my latest book, Between Chance and Mercy. And so the book is comprised of poems about family, poems about COVID, as well as some poems about race. So I'll start with a poem about the eclipse we had in 2017. It's titled Eclipse. In minutes, the moon will elbow a cool path between earth and sun, make a shadow of afternoon, throw shade at the knowledge of man, his dominion over creation. In a 75-cent pair of glasses, I explore the heavens, find the sun a ring of fire around itself, I'm listening for dizzy staccato brass to split the sky, or Jesus to step out on a cloud, point to my name in the book. I would settle for George Clinton behind the wheel of the mothership connection. Instead, in 4 days, another year will pass between this world and me. 55 seasons sifting daybreak from dusk. Over the decades, my hair has thinned, my sight bifocal, and these bones creak with my rising and sitting. But I remain in awe of how the planet moves, that I've held on for all these years, have not been thrown from its surface, waltzing across the universe, a vertigo of desperation and light. It's a poem from my father called The Toolbox. The final hours of the year, fall, rolled me in twilight beneath the hood of an 8-year-old BMW. My oil-stained fingers slipped between shifting shadows, fumbles fading afternoon light. I kissed the skin knuckles on my left hand, cursed the standard socket in my right, stump into the corner of the garage, disrupt the order of solitude with slamming drawers, rummaged contents. Top shelf right corner, just within reach on tiptoes and the touch of fingertips, a toolbox. I blow cobwebs from its metallic heaviness, mites confetti around my head, rub my hand across its lid in faded black letters, my father's name. 3 syllables. My fingers recite the name, my name too, over and over. I have carried his name across the earth for 6 decades. I trace each letter on the box, and from 41 years of dust, rise the rhythm of his voice and steady footfalls, the courage of his callowed hands, his weathered character and dignified deathbed. I flip the latch, raise the lid, turtleneck sweaters, Old Spice, Jack Daniels, and light escapes. Reminds me that I have everything I will ever need to finish the job. All right, this is I Want a UFO. I want a UFO to crash land in my backyard at 3 o'clock in the morning. I want its occupants to crawl from the wreckage, limp to my back door and wrap me from sleep. I want to wave them in. Their color or the gender they prefer will not matter. To cleanse cuts, splint sprains, to sit, eat leftover collard greens and cornbread, or a bowl of Cheerios. I want to ask them who they are and what did they hope to become, and what color their planet, and did it groan or rejoice, and who in hell was flying that flying saucer? I want to know what on earth are they doing in West Tennessee on a Saturday night, and how do they feel about white folks in outer space who carry a catechism of colonialism? I want to know when was the last time they bumped into God, and was he born old, and when is his birthday, and does he ever wear a wristwatch? I want to ask if they want a Dos Equis or a Jack Daniels for the road, and who's going to pay for my roses and azaleas as we stand under moonlight and magnolias. I want to know, do they believe in humans, and are they ever disappointed, and who buries a planet when it dies, and why are they crying as they enter their craft and become 3 lights sucked into the sky. Okay, so I lost a nephew a few years ago. His name was Michael Jr. We called him Junebug. He lost his baby brother in a car accident maybe 10 years prior to that. So Junebug was a big Dallas Cowboy fan, and so this poem is called Junebug Tosses a Football in Heaven. The first minute of forever finds you on a verdant hillside, cerulean sky around your shoulders, eternal sun rising in your eyes, cowboy jersey on your back, a football gripped across the seams and sailed across the face of the wind, until your baby brother's hands. We hear echoes of your voice in thunder after midnight, new rain on the morning, the laughter of your children's children. Our prayers are frequent and numerous. Their answers are slow to return. only leave the word why to fill the void. But there is solace in the truth that you are beyond the pain that bound you to this place. A cool spot reserved for you and Bryant to rest from playing catch, and that daybreak has never forsaken the horizon. All right, read a couple more. In Jackson, there is a historical marker for the 61st Regiment U.S. Colored Troops. These are runaways from their plantation during the Civil War. They joined the Union camps, became known as contraband back then. But eventually, they were trained and they saw battle as the 61st Regiment of the U.S. Colored Troops. So in the courthouse square, there's a historical monument in their honor, and I was asked to write a poem for the unveiling of that marker. This is called Freedom. Freedom is a broken shackle rusting between rows of Tennessee cotton. Freedom is stealing moonlight from swampland, bare footprints tracking the North Star. Freedom is squalor on the edge of town, erected from the pen of Abe Lincoln. Call me contraband. Freedom is a uniform sewn of Union necessity, a blue wool cloak for African manhood. Freedom is $6.50 less for a colored troop, compound interest on insult and disease. Freedom is a regiment of runaways, black faces armed with courage and Springfield rifles, Johnny Reb enraged in retreat. Freedom is 600 hands in surrender to Bedford Forrest's bayonets, the Mississippi hemorrhages at Henning. Freedom is an heirloom around Harriet's neck, bequeathed to her children's children and those waiting to be born. Freedom is an unmarked grave on some great getting up morning, raising a hallelujah. All right, so George Floyd, accounts say that the officer's knee was on his neck for 9 minutes. I've seen 8 minutes. The last account I saw was 7 minutes and 46 seconds. So this poem is a survey of American history in 7 minutes and 46 seconds. With guns trained at your temple, they drag you from your car. Make and model will not save you. Handcuff the remaining minutes of your life. Slam you face first into the street. Any street or nigger will do. They kneel for as long as it takes for blood and urine to fill a gutter, or God and your mother to answer a prayer. They do not cut off your genitals to formaldehyde in some museum's collection. Instead, they stand around and make you watch your own death, make others unsee a history that daily reinvents itself, teaches you that you are responsible for your own noose and gasoline, blames you for not knowing the difference between fire and air. All right, so I'll close with this. This is a poem I wrote on my 60th birthday. I woke up on my 60th birthday and knew I was going to die. Like my father, 2 nephews, 2 brothers-in-law, I felt the earth's generational pull towards the remembrance of dust. The sum parts of my days are scattered in the margins of mourning, and putting them back together is not enough. I stand in judgment of all that I've written and what the world is made of it. My words unborn, progeny to immortalize a life, cushion the fall of shadows. Thank y'all for listening. Anybody got any questions or comments or complaints?
I do have a microphone here if there are questions, just so that folks watching the live stream may hear. I knew there'd be questions.
The poem that you read for George Floyd reminded me a little bit of A Small Needful Fact by Ross Gay that was written for Eric Garner. And I'm just curious, what are some poets that you see writing now that are doing that good work of literary activism? Who are some of your favorites?
Well, I think one of the longtime favorites be a guy in D.C. named Ethelbert Miller.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's been out there a long time. It's a guy in, I believe he teaches in Connecticut now. Randall Horton does good work. There's a lady in Alabama, Jackie Trimble. She's written a book called How to Survive the Apocalypse, which her premise is that black people have been surviving the apocalypse for years. So she does good work out there. But I think, like I said earlier, we're not, we just don't write arts for art's sake. We're not ivory tower type of people. Coming to the Paul Meek literary series, it's okay to take a day trip to the ivory tower, but we can't live there. So we have to be a witness. We have to be on the front line with the art, because the things that goes on around us, not only do they affect other people, but they affect us as well. If one American is discriminated against, all Americans are. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
How did you get into poetry and writing?
Well, initially I wanted to be a sports writer, but when I was in college at University, by the way, I was in a literature class, and I always say I didn't get into writing; writing got into me. Like I mentioned earlier, language has a beauty all of its own, and so it was just something that clicked. So I started reading everything I could get my hand on, and that's the way to actually learn how to write. Is to read as much as possible. Okay, and so I read all the black writers I could, right? But if you're going to be if you're going to have empathy, if you're going to be a well-rounded person, you need to read everybody. Okay, Latino writers, Russians. I mean, those Russian writers. I'm not sure what was in the water over there, but that's some tremendous literature. Okay, so and then of course I developed some relationship with some mentors, right? One of which was at the college at the time. I used to bug her to take a look at the things that I was writing, but then I stepped outside of that, and I started reaching out to published writers, and I developed a relationship with those people. So now what I find myself doing, I have become somewhat of a mentor to other people. And I mentioned about the poetry group that I started. So I help those people get published as much as I can, and I love working with young people. So I'm excited about tomorrow as well.
Yeah, for those that aren't aware, Mr. Cherry will be a speaker tomorrow at the Young Writers Conference, which is sponsored on campus by the Department of English and Modern Foreign Languages, and you're expecting 75, 66 middle and high school students to come to campus. So good luck with that. I did have a question, though.
Yeah.
I have a day job. I get up in the morning, I come to this building, I do my work, and then I go home and I take my jacket off and I have my evening. I know that you do some work outside of writing, but how does a writer write? I mean, are you struck by an idea and you sit down and you jot out a poem and it's done, or is it something where you sit down like me and you go into your day job every day and write?
Well, I think it's something innate in writers. Usually it starts with an image, and something tells me this will make a good poem. And then I could come across another image or a snippet of conversation or whatever, and that will develop into a story. So writing is a very magical process. I can't explain how it works. Like I said earlier, you start with a blank screen or a blank sheet of paper, and by the time you finished, you become more or less just an intermediary, more or less, or a medium. The words flow through you. And when it's going well, you don't want to stop, and you can't wait to get up in the morning to get back at it. So For me, it's a very spiritual thing as well. But generally, I write my fiction during the evening hours. And with the poetry now, I'm at a level now I can jot down some ideas, and if I don't wait too long, I can go back and pick it up, put some flesh on the bones, so to speak.
I kind of have a follow-up question to that. Do you write in longhand? Do you write it on a piece of paper? Do you write it on a computer? How do you write?
I write the poetry longhand, and I write the fiction on the computer. Yeah. That's strange, isn't it? Yes, ma'am.
Have the last 10 months shaped the way that you write, the way that you think about poetry, truth and beauty, and all of the things that you talked about? What have the last 10 months done for you?
I think it's strengthened and I think it's solidified what I already believe, that words matter, human beings matter, and it's actually probably somewhat emboldened me, because one of the projects that I will write that I'm thinking about in the back of my mind is a scenario where particular people are disappearing, and so I'm developing that concept. But this is what I want to share, something that Toni Morrison said. She said, "This is precisely the time when artists go to work. There's no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. This is how civilizations heal." So I couldn't agree with that more. I mean, this is the time to put the work in. And I mean, somebody's going to have to document what we're going through, right? Somebody's going to have to say something at some point. And so, like I mentioned earlier, hopefully this too shall pass. Things have a way of one day this way, one day that way. So, thank you.
Great. Well, I invite people to come forward if you have additional questions. I know that Mr. Cherry's here to say hello and talk about those things. I also want to remind you that we have copies of his book for sale here, books, and he'd be glad to sign a copy this evening while you're here. Please remember that this has been recorded. Share the recording to others that might be interested. But for those of you that are here, maybe you can help me thank James Cherry for this evening. Thank you.